This week on the podcast, Carrie and I are talking about the good old days and some of the things that have really changed the way we do the parks since the first time we started visiting. But first, we've got to talk about all of the great news that's come out this week. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Francine, and you're listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast, a podcast where our first topic of conversation will always be Disney. I've been a Disney fan for as long as I can remember, and I'm determined to bring more of that Disney magic into my everyday life. So if you need a little extra pixie dust in your day, you've come to the right place. Thanks so much for listening, and let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. Thank you all for listening. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good today.
Are you? That's good.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy week.
It is, and it's cold outside, so there's no reason to leave the house. It's a perfect day.
It's a perfect day to stay inside.
Yes.
Should we dive right into the news and bring everybody up to speed on what's going on? They've missed.
Yeah. What the news that we think is
newsworthy.
Exciting.
Like,
yeah. What
should we start with though? Do you want to start with like the biggest news that I read this week?
Sure.
Yeah. So we both kind of compiled our list of news things, right?
Newsworthy. What's his big? There's
an osprey bird building a nest on the Tron light cycle.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting news that there's a bird nesting up there. There was a bird nesting on the new one of the new Universal roller coasters like a month back.
So what do they do with it?
I wonder if he's relocated.
Well, you think
this bird moves from roller coaster build to roller coaster build across central Ontario or central Orlando, Florida.
So you think they relocate him? Or maybe it's the same bird. Maybe he's like, okay, I'm done with this coaster over at Universal. Disney's better. I'm heading over there.
Maybe he likes the thrills.
Maybe. That could be it.
Maybe he likes to be in the news.
But now you got to think about it. So what is Disney going to do when they need this bird gone? They're going to have to like physically relocate it.
They'll probably call Universal and ask what they did. Although I'm sure they've had to deal with stuff like this before.
I would imagine so. I would imagine they'll call in some people from Animal Kingdom, come and get this bird down.
Maybe. I don't know.
Could be very exciting to watch.
Whoa.
But that's the silly news. Shall we talk about the big news that was happening this week?
Absolutely.
Don't you have like some news that's so exciting to you?
Well, it's exciting to everybody. Disneyland got they've changed some rules in California, so the opening of Disneyland may be much sooner than expected.
That was the best news ever. There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope. Although
there's still rules around when it can, like it still has to get to a certain level, like whatever, I guess the orange tier before it can open. But at least they weren't supposed to open until the yellow tier, which was like, people thought that would never happen this year. So that's exciting.
That is very exciting. They say the earliest is April 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was kind of unnerved when I read that though, because then I kept thinking, is it a joke?
Oh, because of April Fools.
Yeah. Like it was one of those, I almost don't want to get my hopes up, but how exciting could that be? We could do a coast to coast earlier than we think.
Well, I think they still have to get to that level, so that might not happen by April 1st, but like from that date and beyond, it's allowed to open when they meet the criteria or whatever the level.
It's a good goal to have. Mm-hmm. And it's 15% capacity, right? They said it could open with 15% capacity at the beginning. Wouldn't it be fantastic to be there with 15% capacity?
Well, I also think I don't know that they've really, Disney hasn't really said anything other than that they hope to share more details soon, but didn't it say that it can only be California, people that live in California?
Probably.
So we're out of
we might be out of luck
whatever.
there.
We can't get too far anyways, but
I know.
But at least there's
hope.
You know, there's hope that we may be able to go.
Yeah.
Later on in the year or whatever.
It's so exciting. There may be an Oogie Boogie Bash in your future after all.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I don't know that they would have Oogie Boogie Bash this year. But.
You never know.
And they had other Disneyland news was they opened up the sales of tickets for the Touch of Disney event at DCA. And as usual, we broke the Disney internet. The people of California or whoever could get to the park for that broke the internet.
I don't know why a company of this size, the Walt Disney Company, with all their resources, why they don't have better technology for websites. They can do magic bands. They can have, screens talk to you when you're leaving. It's a Small World with your name on it. Like, they have technology everywhere. What is the problem with the websites? Well,
I think that they've definitely gotten better over the years with their virtual queues and whatever, how they, like, whatever system or company they use or whatever to put the queues through. But I don't know, I think...
I saw quite a few people online complaining about that.
Like, people waited for hours or all day or whatever to, like, in their queue. So it was... I think it worked in the end. And it was so popular they had to release more dates. The one thing I wonder, though, like, with the timing of it, right? Like, everybody bought these tickets. They paid $75, and then a couple days later, ooh, guess what? Disneyland might open sooner than later. Like,
will they be upset?
How mad might they be if they just bought, like, 2 or 3 sets of tickets to go into DCA?
Yeah.
Or maybe even just one, right? Like, their family that bought 4 or 5 tickets to go into that, and then
the park
and
is
then
open.
They're going to be over there looking at they're going to be over like crying outside of the gates of Disneyland because at the end of the day because they couldn't go in.
That's true.
So then they'll be spending, because really, like, I'm sure people will have bought those tickets, and then as soon as they can buy tickets to go into the park, they'll be buying them too.
That's true.
Disneyland.
It'll be interesting to see. I can't wait to see people back in the parks and just to see some of that Disneyland excitement again. And I mean, I know the website or whatever, but like, where were people going anyway? You can't go anywhere anyway, so.
Yeah, sometimes when I've been in their queue, they have like the guy walking across the screen, so you just like watch that guy, the little figurine walking across the screen all day long.
So it's been an exciting week for Disneyland. Mm-hmm. Which is nice. And what about Walt Disney World? Flower and Garden started.
Yeah, there's lots of posts and videos out there about Flower and Garden and all the food.
They've managed to work food into all Epcot festivals, which I'm happy for.
But I like the Flower and Garden better than the Food and Wine because I think now they're so similar with their offerings. I'm not going to go in deep on the wine and food demos and whatever that they have that makes maybe the Food and Wine different than the Flower and Garden, and maybe the Flower and Garden offer to an extent that type of stuff too. I think they do. Maybe they do more flower and gardeny stuff in
flower and gardeny stuff.
Yeah, and then a little bit of those.
You stay tuned for
more
our
in-depth food
reviews.
More in-depth food things than.
Yeah,
and it's a festival almost all year long now.
True.
Except for a little bit of time in the summer.
There's always a festival. There always seems to be a festival going on. Now, what about the Polynesian? Did you see that news?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those pictures look amazing of the rooms.
So they're Moana themed, refresh at the Polynesian Resort. I'm always nervous when they talk about retheming, and especially the fact that they said they were going to put like a character in them. And I thought, I don't want to see the Poly become art of animation. That's always the part that worries me. But they did a beautiful job. Very classy, perfect touches.
I wasn't worried because you know how the design elements that they put into their deluxe and villas are kind of they're similar, right? So
yes,
with just a hint of the characters.
That's true. It's so tastefully done.
It's amazing.
They're beautiful.
One day.
I can't wait to get there and
I've never
see them.
stayed there before, so.
Oh, we might have to do that then next time.
Mm-hmm. I have a few resorts to catch up to your stayed everywhere
We'll have to add that to maybe our next trip. It has to be
the ones that I'm missing on my list are just the Magic Kingdom resorts. I've stayed everywhere else.
Isn't that funny? That it's the Magic Kingdom ones that are missing for you.
Yep. So I need to do a whirlwind monorail.
A monorail crawl. Stay. Yep. Let's do it. Let's do it. Have you done Wilderness Lodge?
No, I haven't done that either. That's
like
them,
the
though.
Wilderness
So it's
and Fort Wilderness. Yeah.
The Magic Kingdom resorts, including
yes,
Wilderness.
Oh, fun. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I have a few that I want to do next time, too. We could do some split stays. That would be fun.
Split stays.
Just to get through them all. It'd be fun. So that was exciting. WandaVision. Did you watch? No spoilers.
Yep.
No spoilers.
Yeah, and I'm sure, really, yes, no spoilers, because we wouldn't want, to ruin it with our interpretation for all these Marvel fans out there.
Oh my God.
They're like, please don't say anything.
They're like, stop
not because you're going to spoil it, because it's offensive.
So I've gotten some backlash from my nephew, sort of about talking about Marvel. I had some others reach out and say it was funny, you two talking about Marvel. And I actually had a listener reach out and say that she went back and rewatched all the Marvel movies after listening to our podcast. So we inspired some more.
We inspired.
Right? I was like,
we influenced someone to watch they're probably because we confused them. We better go back and watch these guys from the get-go, from the start.
But yes, we both watched WandaVision. We both have more questions, and we'll just leave it at that.
We'll talk amongst ourselves.
Was there any other news that we had to cover before we dive into this week's actual topic?
Well, the one thing I think we forgot about the parks was the flags at Epcot. Did you see those? The pictures of the flags they lifted at Epcot?
So I saw a picture, but I got to be honest, I didn't read the whole thing.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So these are flags near the front?
Yeah, so they're like to the sides of Spaceship Earth and the fountain.
Ooh.
And they're like the old icons. The Epcot icons. There's 6 of them. So they have 6 on each side. And they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Wow.
That's all I can say.
I feel like they're doing some really good Epcot. They're doing a lot of like throwback almost. Like they're honoring Epcot's history when they're building new things. I love it.
Well, I think that's what they've done to that entrance plaza is exactly that. They've brought it back to what it originally was. So, and that's what excited me about this whole Epcot
transformation.
Transformation and upgrade was that they were going to upgrade, but then they were going to honor the past. And yeah, it's just picture perfect. Can't wait to see it.
They're getting close to the new show at Epcot, the nighttime show. They've installed everything.
That too.
I'm upset though, because I only got to see the other one, the temporary show, once. Like it was
I didn't even see it.
It was supposed to be there for a year and a half or something while they were getting ready for the new show after Illuminations went. And I saw it once. It was fantastic. It was everything I could have dreamed looking back at Epcot history. And I only got to see it once because of this stupid pandemic thing. It's so, I don't want that to go away too quickly before I can get there.
I know, you really liked it.
I loved it.
Like, I heard mixed reviews, and your review was...
I loved it. I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that I got to see it.
But there's been lots of little snippets about Harmonious moving along, so...
I know. And I'm excited about that one. And the change is good and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to experience the other one a few times. And I didn't get to. So maybe it'll still be there by the time I jump on a plane and get there. Change is good. Change is good. Which is the whole topic of our show today.
Right. But one more thing. Did you see the Winnie the Pooh Lego set? You did, because you posted about it, right?
I did. It's so cute. Like, if I was ever going to buy a Lego set, that might be it.
You need to buy it.
Well, I don't know. I still have that same puzzle sitting on my coffee table for like a month and a half now.
That was my favorite. That was my favorite Disney merch of the week. Even though they brought out Kermit and Piggy.
Oh, the
nuiMOs. Is that how you say them?
I think that's how you say them. The nuiMO. I love those little things. They're so cute.
They were winning for the week for sure.
So the Pooh Bear took over your Kermit and Piggy?
It's a tie because there's three things. There was the Piggy and Kermit nuiMOs. Then
Yes.
do you know the artist that I love that does the Kingdom of Cute? His name is Jared Mariyama. He does like all the cutesy little icons.
Oh, yes. You've showed me his art at Disney Springs when we've been there, right?
And he has he's done like little figurines. He's done all kinds of stuff. He's done the ears. He designed the hipster Mickey when hipster Mickey was so hip a couple of years ago. But at the parks, he has a whole new line. Like, so they have everything from like kitchen stuff, like trays and planters and cool stuff. They have like dog toys. Like, there's a whole new line of all these cutesy things. So that was pretty exciting. But I don't know, that the Winnie the Pooh Lego, it's a tough one. It's because I love Lego. So I don't know. Maybe I can't choose now that I talked about it a little bit more.
Now you're on the fence.
I know, definitely the Kingdom of Cute and the Lego. Those are my top two of this week.
Yeah, I think that Lego is pretty awesome. I'm really,
and it's fairly reasonably priced, and I think it would look cute just set up and
yes,
on display.
Absolutely.
My other Lego.
I think you should buy it. It would go with all your other Lego.
Yeah, I'm going to pre-order that sucker.
I know you are. Well, because don't you get a discount because you're such a...
No, I don't get a discount, but when you can sign up to be a Lego VIP, and if you're a Lego VIP, which I think anybody can be a Lego VIP if you buy Lego directly from Disney.
I didn't know
or
that
Disney
Lego
from Lego.
They had like a Lego club like that.
It is a club, and then
That's pretty cool.
but you can order. I think you can order early if you're in the VIP club. Which isn't really I'm pretty sure it's free. Anybody can do it.
Whatever, but still, it makes you feel special. You're a Lego VIP. I'm not. So that's pretty
You
cool.
could be, though. Click of a mouse, I believe you could be a Lego VIP, too.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, there was some good merchandise this week, too. It was a big week for news. Mm-hmm. But this week, we were going to talk about the changes in the parks over the years.
Right. How has it changed since we started going now?
Exactly. So, and I think it all kind of spawned from, there was a conversation online with someone. I had posted something about a wait time, like how long would you wait for Space Mountain? And somebody came back and said, the longest I've waited, if I see it's more than 90 minutes, I don't wait. And it dawned on me then, we used to get in line and not know how long the wait was. So then that was kind of how we came about this whole topic about how things have changed back in the good old days, or were they really that good? Because there's some things that changed that I'm quite happy have changed. So the first one probably would be wait times. We would get in line and not know how long the line was. You just stood in line as long as it took you to get to the front. And I don't think we had any concept, and nor did you even think about it. I remember being in line, I think it was Splash Mountain when it first opened, and every time we turned a corner and thinking, oh my gosh, is this not the end? Because we waited hours. And you would turn a corner, and then it's kind of like, in some of the rides when you get in and you see like you turn the corner and you're in another room and it snakes back and forth, and you think, oh my goodness, are we ever getting there? It's kind of like last time on Rise of the Resistance. There wasn't a lot of information about how long the actual queue was. And every time we turned a corner, it was like, oh, another room. But at least you had an idea of how long you were going to be waiting. Back in the day, you got in that line, you entered that room, you didn't know if you were an hour away or 6 hours away. So I will say that I do appreciate now that you have an idea. If they say you're waiting an hour, chances are it's within 15 minutes of that time.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into.
It's not 7 hours. So that's a big change for me. And I think for you were saying, it's the crowds.
Yeah, the crowds I didn't start going to Walt Disney World till I was an adult, a young adult. You've went your whole life. I went in high school, and I don't really have very many like memories to be able to have too many comments on this topic, other than we went on Christmas. Like I was in the parks on Christmas Day, and I didn't feel it, other than it being Christmas and having a special parade or whatever. It didn't feel like any different than the other days I was there. So
isn't that so bizarre?
But again, I was in high school, so I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was different and I just don't remember. But as an adult going, I remember going in September and the parks were empty and really empty.
You could walk empty, on things, right? No issue.
Go on things over and over and over again, like getting on the People Mover, which is probably a silly example because it's not, still maybe not the most popular thing, but like them just letting you stay on it 5 times in a row or whatever, because it was just a different time. And being in the parks earlier in the day, and I have pictures where there's nobody in Frontierland, nobody, because it was early in the morning. We were there for rope drop, and until lunchtime, it was a ghost town. And so to me, those are the good old, because I don't have a lot of memories from too far back, but that's one that seriously is the big one, or maybe almost even one of the only, the only one, because I know that will never happen again. Not
unless it's a special ticket event.
No, but not even though, because those special ticketed events, the special ticketed events are as the years went on, more and more people seem to be in them, right? Like there's more and more people, more and more tickets sold to the Halloween parties and things like that, right? So, and I think because we go so often, those ticketed events to go into the parks 45 minutes early or an hour early to get into a certain land isn't what we want to do, because we're not at that point in our park fandom to want to do that, right? So it's not really an option to be able to have that type of experience, but just the parks being empty and having less, short wait times and really back that first trip, I think we did everything. And I know you can't do everything at Walt Disney World, but when it came to attractions and shows, my sister-in-law was our guide, and I swear we did everything, or everything that we could possibly do, because the low crowds allowed us to just one after another, just swoop through those parks and see everything.
And not, right, because there weren't the lines, there weren't the crowds, you could, even going to get something to eat, there weren't the lines that there are now.
And then I think the other thing for me is the difference between planning, back then and now. Mm-hmm. So we had I had my sister-in-law that was really my tour guide, and I had Birnbaum's book. So, when we were planning the trip, she sent me, we went and bought our Birnbaum book, and she's like, Toots, read this. This is what you need to know. And maybe there was a bit of research that could be done on the internet, but probably not. And we just read our books, and we went and looked forward to things based on what we saw in the books. We didn't know what to expect. There was no ride, we didn't watch ride-through videos. We didn't know what the menus were going to look like before we got there. Now you can, in advance of arriving, you can know if you want to. I know there's some people that want to do this, and then some people that still want the element of surprise, but now you can know every single thing about your trip before you even get there. And then back then that wasn't an option. We just had the element of surprise. So those are I think my 2 biggies.
Yeah, I think the crowds are, even way back, when you think back to the first pirate and princess parties and things like that, there were nobody in the parks. And I happily paid for those events because there were nobody in the parks. Now the special ticketed events are just as crowded as a regular day. So yeah, the crowds have definitely changed over the years. That's for sure. And we will never see the good old days to that extent, but I think there's a lot of great things about the parks now that make up for Well,
for that.
And that's, it sounds kind of cheesy, but that Walt Disney always said the parks would evolve, the parks would change. And even though I'm not, lots of us aren't good with change, some of it's fantastic. I mean, okay, so one of the things that isn't so great anymore is the character, and I totally get why, but the characters don't roam. And I mean, even before the pandemic, at Walt Disney World for sure, in order to meet a character, you had to line up. Like, it was a special, they didn't just roam the streets. They do it in Disneyland, but they definitely don't do it in Walt Disney World. And they used to, way, way, way back when. They would wander and people would stop and get autographs or pictures or things like that.
Yeah, more spontaneous. Now you need a fast pass.
Exactly. So fast passes obviously are new. One of the other things that I think has changed the way we do parks, obviously it's changed the world, but the way we do parks is the internet. So, way back when you were going to the parks, there was not online research to find stuff out. When I went for my 25th birthday, I did not know the castle was a cake before I got there.
And that's mind-boggling, like in today's time, to think that you went there.
You know exactly what's on that castle right now.
Whether we want to know it or whether we want to spoilers or anti-spoilers, there's no way.
Exactly.
Unless
I had no idea until we walked in the Magic Kingdom and saw that monstrosity. And honestly, I remember being so upset because we were there for my birthday and seeing that it was terrible. But you didn't know in advance. So there was no, aside from the Burn Bomb books, and those even came out later, like everything was a surprise. You didn't know until you got there. And there wasn't the same kind of research. So, and I think I've told you this story before, but my mom was obsessed in the Contemporary. So we always stayed at the Contemporary when I was a kid. And someone told my mother about the goat in the Mary Blair mural. But whoever it was, or she didn't hear it properly because she was hard of hearing, she was convinced it was a three-legged goat. So she got part of the story right, that Mary Blair had painted an imperfect animal in this mural because she wanted to remind everybody that, about imperfections. So my mother said there was a three-legged goat in this mural, and we needed to find it. But we spent years, like I'm not talking about one trip. I mean years. There used to be like a buffet. There was a big restaurant where the Contempo Cafe is, like a sit down. They brought out your food restaurant. We sat there for hours staring at this mural, trip after trip. We would tell friends, I'm bringing friends with me. We got to find this mural. It was not until the invention of the internet that I discovered that this goat was not three-legged. It was five-legged. And it was over by the monorail. So we were looking on the wrong side. We were looking on the wrong wall. We spent years looking at the wrong wall. And it's hysterical because I have this picture of my mom standing outside of our room at the Contemporary one year. And she's on like the balcony part inside, and Space Mountain is behind her. And had she just looked to her right, the five-legged goat would have been right there. Based on where she's standing in the resort. It's crazy. So, yes, that was our entertainment, sitting there staring at this mural and never being able to find the goat. The internet has given us access to so many details.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and there's lots of details to be found. So I guess it's good that they can be found now. But before it would have been they might have been a bit more special, or maybe, I wonder now if it's still that they're so out there, easily accessible, all these little tips and tricks, like, hidden Mickeys used to be hidden Mickeys and that was the thing, but now there's hidden Mickeys, but there's so many other stories and tidbits and histories and things the Imagineers do and why that we all know. I wonder if it's still, like, does it still take a certain type of fan to kind of dive into that realm, or is it more that everybody just happens to find it now because
Well, because now it's so easy. I almost feel like it's a bit overwhelming because we knew about this one thing, the goat, but there was probably hundreds we could have been looking for, but we only really knew about the one. And the one came from somebody telling my mom. It was probably someone who worked at the resort that told her. And, you know, we never thought to go back and ask them, like, on a, which is like, why did we not go back 3 trips later and go, can somebody just please point it out?
This dang goat.
Like, I remember as a teenager, so this was when I was a kid, and as a teenager, we had gone, and my boyfriend had come with us, and I remember he was determined to find this for my mother, and of course never did.
No dice.
No dice. But it's, man. So it's nice being able to Google and research certain things, but it does take that sort of determination and fun of discovery out of it.
Well, yeah, but I think also having those things more widely found and more mainstream just makes more people fall in love with Walt Disney World too.
That's
right?
true.
Like,
that is
like
so
instead
true.
of, you think back in the day, like just having to, like, you would learn about that thing just by chance. And
yes.
You know how many people would go to Walt Disney World and never hear any of those tidbits or even put their mind in that space to understand why certain things were the way they were. And now, like, most people, after they've been once or twice, all that information is for there to kind of take it to another level because it's right there at their fingertips. And I don't know, like, I wonder if people find it more, before it was word of mouth, right? Like, thinking back to my trip with my sister-in-law, like, young grasshopper, let me show you the way, to now, like, people can find all that stuff on their own, and the list is long, and it just helps them.
Yes. But I think it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, because having the internet is fantastic, except for the fact that as much knowledge is on the internet, there is as much bad knowledge on the internet too. So you hear about these people planning their trips and, their first, second, even 5th trip. And I think and I'm like, oh, please don't do this by yourself, because you're going to get the wrong information. If you're scouring the internet trying to plan, some of this information is going to lead you astray.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also it makes people more, like, anxious and worried about their trip, right? Because there's all that information, and because people discuss it to every minute detail and morsel of snack that you can eat.
Yes.
That, they're, like, I think people have unbelievable pressure in planning their trips, and the message is, like, every bit of it's magical, and it's just keeping everybody happy and keeping everybody, getting along and happy, and just making the most out of your day. But making the most out of your day isn't riding every single ride or making sure you're doing every single thing you read in that blog. It's just making the moment that works best for you, right? Whether it's, having a nap in your contemporary bed that overlooks that you can see the magic kingdom, the castle in your slumbers, or swimming in the pool, or going on every ride. But I think there's so much pressure because of everybody's 2 cents, and not that all the 2 cents, some of them they're maybe not right, or maybe it's just because people love it so much and they want to share and spread the love that people get overwhelmed and they don't know what to do, or they overprogram their trips, or have a lot of pressure on what to do. I kind of wonder though, when you get there and you get in that bubble and the magic does start to sprinkle on you, you must kind of chill out a little bit and just let the magic take control. But up until that point, you've got collated, binders and PDFs and everybody's got tasks and jobs to do and to tackle and make the perfect trip. So it's definitely can be overwhelming compared to you just read your Burn Bomb book.
Right.
Maybe you read it 6 times and you bunny-eared a lot of pages and highlighted things, but
I think that's the part that's missing. Well, I think that's the part now, and this, it's not a commercial, but for Disney vacation planners, like people like our friends at Pure Magic, it's almost like back to the Burn Bomb days, right? There are 7,000 opinions about how you should do your trip, but in the Burn Bomb days, you had one book, one guide, and at least all of those thoughts were all from the same book. And I feel like that's what you need in a vacation planner, because if not, there are sites out there. You and I try to keep it, as much as we're super duper fans, we talk Disney every day. We know all sorts of details. We also try to respect the fact that people are not like us. They're not living and breathing this every day. And we want to talk about Disney in the way that most people enjoy Disney that aren't like super duper duper fans. And I think that's one of the things that increase the benefits of their trips is when they kind of get that one viewer, that one voice of advice that isn't crowded by all of the massive over the top fandom that is going to say, well, if you miss the ring outside the Haunted Mansion in this little corner, in this little nook, then your trip is ruined. You haven't done everything. Like, right? Like, it's that kind of, I think
the trusted advice and it's having somebody that helps you decide what's the best for you and your family.
Because before the internet, quite honestly, we didn't know if we missed anything. We never knew if we saw everything or not. And I think I miss that.
We just had a map.
We had a map.
So one thing,
there was only the Magic Kingdom though when I started going. It's not like we could miss much.
Now, do you find like back then in the good old days, when you were going to the parks every year, was there a lot of new stuff? Like compared to like, I guess, because now there's always new things or things are getting refurbished or new parades or whatever. Like there must have been new stuff back then, but not as much. Like,
I remember
when you go, if you went every year, well, I guess maybe not. I guess now when you go every year, you would always have a list of new things to try, whether it's a new show or a new parade or new rides.
Yes. If you're going yearly, there's always something new.
But back then, would there have been as much, like maybe new restaurants or new dining experiences at the resorts, things like that? But would the parks have changed?
Changes to the attractions sometimes, because remember, a lot of the attractions back then were sponsored. So when the sponsorship ran out, then your attraction would change and you didn't know. Right. Like right now, people know about Splash Mountain being refurbed or this being refurbed. And they're like, oh my gosh, which is hysterical because online last week, I saw somebody posted a picture of the Great Movie Ride and someone commented and said, oh no, I love that ride. Please tell me they're not changing it. Right? So all kinds of Disney fandom that this person online had no idea that her favorite attraction at Hollywood Studios has been closed for a couple of years and now Mickey and Minnie have their own attraction in there. But back in the day when you would go, you had no idea that anything had changed until you showed up. So my favorite rides as a kid, I didn't know when Toad was coming out, or if you had Wings, went through 2 or 3 different sponsors, I think. And each time they changed slightly. So those would be new. There were and they closed things. So like the buckets that used to go across Tomorrowland, like the old OG Skyliner that was in the Magic Kingdom. And things like the tickets. So how you got to the parks was really different. You paid your admission, but you had to buy tickets when you were in the park for each attraction. When you think about it now, if you love Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, you can go on that 14 times with your price of admission. Back then, you couldn't do that. You had to get a book of tickets, and then depending on how good the attraction was, you had to pay a ticket to get on the attraction. And I remember begging my parents for more tickets for certain attractions and then negotiating what kind of ticket I got, whether it was for a thrill ride or a basic ride or whatever, but you needed tickets. But I don't I remember going with new rides, new attractions opening up. And you found out generally when you got there.
Crazy.
It was crazy. But things like, there were a lot of things. It was a lot slower paced as well. So in the Magic Kingdom, there used to be a street that was full of flowers. Now, I think most of the flowers are fake. And now that I think about it, it's probably where most of my mom's house flowers came from. Because my mom never had real flowers. Even the ones in the backyard that she planted were fake. So my lack of a green thumb, I come by it honestly.
Naturally.
She had fake flowers everywhere. But there was
because that's what they did at Walt Disney World. She probably thought,
right?
If it's what Walt Disney World does, then
yeah. And it was a huge thing to get a sketch done of you. So they had this whole street full of flowers, and they had like sketch artists that would sit on that street, and you would get a big portrait of yourself done. And I have like 7 of these portraits. I got it. One day I'm going to take pictures of them and show you, because I'm miserable in every single one, because we're in the park and I'm thinking, why am I sitting here posing for this thing? And you were always, your hair was done and you'd be in a dress instead of, like, people go to the park now in track pants and running shoes because you're on your feet all day. Back then you were in dress shoes and dresses and all gussied up for picture moments, because you only took 5 or 10 pictures in a day. You didn't have right? And you didn't know if any of those pictures turned out till you got home. So after...
Right.
It sounds so crazy, doesn't it?
The good old days.
The good old days. But I think, like, when I look back at the technology that we thought was so fantastic back then and how far it's come. So, like, games rooms were huge back then. And now, I know the resorts still have games rooms, but they're all pretty tiny.
Like, I think the games rooms in the resorts are pretty big, some of them. So, like, if you're telling me they were... well, yeah.
Well, I guess maybe at Pop and Art of Animation, they're big.
That's true. I guess the newer resorts, they've built them bigger than some of the older ones. They would be, or the deluxe ones would be tiny.
Yeah.
But you're telling me this contemporary games room was the bee's knees. Well,
the Contemporaries games room was everything. It was like, I would probably say a quarter of the size of the bottom of the Contemporary, like where the wave is. It was that big. It was huge. And it had all sorts of, oh my gosh, Carrie, it had everything. Like when I was really little, it had like this little movie theater in it where you could go and watch movies. But it had every pinball game you could ever imagine, like all the great pinball machines. It had air hockey tables. I remember when Pac-Man first arrived in the games room, it was huge. It had, you're laughing at me. It had like a snack bar. It was
a snack bar.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, there was this huge snack bar in it. And
like, cause part of the story, I'm picturing little tiny Francine that's like 6 years old looking at this wall of pinball machines. So I think, is it because you're just little and you think it's a big room? But if there's a movie theater, some sort of a movie theater and a snack bar, that's where I'm like, okay, I guess it was probably bigger.
It was huge. I gotta find some pictures of this thing. But I remember being there. It was my 15th birthday.
Wait a minute. Of these coveted few pictures that were taken during your your vacation,
we had pictures of the games room, of course, because my dad and I would spend so much time in it. Yeah, we loved the games rooms. Those were huge, and it just go to show you that there was so much, because there was only the Magic Kingdom. You had to, the activities were a lot about the resorts and what you were doing at the resorts instead of just the park, because obviously there was only the one park. But the last bit of technology that is hilarious, and I was showing you the other night, I was showing you some videos. I remember as a kid, my sister, her dream job when we all moved to Walt Disney World, because that's what we were going to do, was the monorail. So on the monorails, it was not, you couldn't stand on the monorail. It was like a big bench. So every bench had a door that you slid into this bench, and your whole party slid along the bench. But because, the monorail was pretty cutting edge technology. However, the doors were not. So the doors were like actual doors that they had to open. And then once you were in, they had to close. So when everybody was in the monorail, they would have people running up and down the monorail track, close it, like slamming the doors shut. I don't know why nobody ever got their arm cut off.
Well, did they tell everybody to keep their hands and arms in the doors?
I would imagine they must have done it with a megaphone or something. Because they would run along and slam all of the doors shut so that the monorail could take off. And Becky always said that was her dream job. She was going, and if you know my sister now, I don't think I can imagine her running up and down the monorail tracks, shutting the doors. But yes, that's what that's what the monorails used to be like. And now it's all automated to the point where there's alarms and bells if the doors aren't shut properly. And it's pretty cool to think about. So technology has really changed over the years. And I think that part has been fantastic.
Yep. Fast passes, magic bands. Mobile ordering is probably my favorite technology.
I love that. I absolutely love that. But I think I do miss the element of surprise.
Yes.
Although it is nice to be able to research like scary rides and things like that for kids. Well, I don't know. Like when you think of it now, people going now and they go online and they watch the YouTube or whatever of the attraction to determine whether or not their kid is going to be scared on the attraction. Mine just made me go on it.
I was going to ask. You found out if it was you.
You found out when you were on it, whether you were scared or not. Well,
because really your parents might not have known either, right?
They didn't know.
Waited in line. There's this new thing called Space Mountain.
Well, yeah. I remember being absolutely, unbelievably scared on Space Mountain. I thought I was going to fall out. That was it. I was going to fall out and they'd never find me because it was that big of a pit that I would have fallen into because, of course, you have no concept of how big it is. Yeah, I remember being terrified. I remember being terrified on Peter Pan. I was terrified. I thought I was going to fall, and I thought I was going to fall into London.
Neverland, into London.
So, I don't know. I definitely think that I missed that element of surprise. Otherwise, I'm happy with all of the changes that happen. Is there anything else that you miss that you think, I wish we still had that. I wish we could still do that.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so.
The food and merchandise is better now.
Well, that's you had asked back then that I wish was still.
Yeah.
Like the flip side, yes. I think that we have much better food options and merchandise. Like mouse ears used to be just the old school mouse ears. Now you have the bands, color matte bands, like sparkly matte colors of the like every color of the rainbow, every theme, every character. And but whatever. I don't even wear ears, but like the clothes, like the t-shirts, used to be able to get, like, I call it like a box t-shirt, like an old school t-shirt. You could probably get like a baseball cap, and you could probably get just a plain old unisex square t-shirt, and
they all had the same logo.
And now you could outfit yourself from top to bottom, and it would look like an outfit that you bought anywhere else. It just has Disney flair to it. So that's something that's better. And I was asking you, like, back in the good old days, like, what were the snacks like? Were they more traditional? Like now, where it was just churros, or maybe not even at Disney World, like popcorn and pretzels and things like that. And like, I'm sure there was snacks and treats, but like not every 30 feet and in every venue you could find these treats. No. Like, was it really like a treat? But
yes,
like a traditional treat.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I remember it being like treats, but I actually don't remember any of the food. Isn't that funny? Like, when I look back, I don't remember the food until I was probably in my early 20s, before like the food started to be part of the experience. And of course, my love of cupcakes.
Well, you really just wanted to get in lines for the rides and get back to that, get back to the arcade.
Oh my games room. I'm telling you, you ask anybody who used to stay at the Contemporary, they will tell you about this games room. It was amazing. It was so fun. And the pools were a big event too. Like going swimming and hanging out at the pools. We used to play tennis. Like you did all of that kind of stuff as opposed to going just to the parks.
Well, and a lot of the stuff that they have at the resorts, you wonder sometimes if people actually take advantage of it, because like so many people are focused on the theme park, right? Like you have you have this romantic idea before you go that you're going to like have a nap in the day and have 2.5 pool days, and you're going to, go for that jog or rent that boat on the lake. And then you get there and it's like theme park warrior kicks in and you hear that people have spent, 6 park days from morning till night. And they're like, I didn't even unpack my bathing suit.
I didn't know. There was so much stuff. And I do, I actually have on our YouTube channel, I have a couple of my old home movies. And you can see us on the Speedway, the Tomorrowland Speedway, probably 4 times in the same movie, because that's all you did is you got off the Speedway and then you got back in line to go on back on the Speedway. It was crazy. And of course, the advisories for the attractions. So I don't know back then, but heart conditions were really the only thing that they warned you about. Heart conditions and pregnancy. That's it. So before getting on any attraction, they had those warnings. And that's it. Otherwise, you took your chances.
You didn't even know what you were getting into.
You had no idea. And it sticks with me because I remember going on things because my dad had I didn't know what he had, but I just knew he had a bad heart. And I remember being paranoid every time we went on a ride and I'd see one of those signs and I'd say to him, Dad, you're not supposed to come on here. And he'd be like, oh, I'll be fine. But I always worried he was going to have a heart attack on one of these things because it said if you had a bad heart, you weren't supposed to ride.
Oh, dear.
So it always sticks with me. It's fun looking back at how much it's changed. And I'm so excited for all the new stuff. With the 50th, it's going to be like nobody does better than Disney at looking back and looking forward at the same time. And we'll be there. I'm hoping Eventually. We're going to be there. Huh?
Eventually.
What are you saying? No. We are
Someday.
Going.
One day. Someday.
We will be there in October. Maybe if everything's all right with the world, we can do our coast to coast in October.
I think you're pushing it there, but yeah.
Well, I've got at least 1 week for us booked at Bay Lake Tower in October, and maybe we'll have to figure out how to tack on a few nights at the Contemporary. Check that off your list.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's plan it. Carrie, this has been a fun one. I hope everybody enjoyed the walk down memory lane of the good old days for us.
Yeah, you've got lots of great memories. I love listening to them and hearing them.
Some of them,
putting in my 2 cents. Asking my kooky questions.
One day we'll talk all about all the other crazy stuff that used to happen there. Oscar Mayer. I bet you people didn't know he used to be in the parks either. But yeah, we can definitely do some more where we talk about that. I'd love to hear people's questions and what their first memories of the parks were like. That would be fun. So anybody that wants to share some of their first memories, I'd love to hear them. You can send them to us on Facebook, Instagram, email, anywhere. Just get a hold of us and let us know. Would love to hear it. When your first visit was. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Carrie, we're at that part of the podcast. It's time for some pixie dust.
My pixie dust.
Your pixie dust. What brought you some happiness, joy, whatever it was this week?
Well, yesterday I got a signed copy of my friend has published her second book, Love Tormented. It's a romance and suspense novel. And
Ooh.
I can't wait to read it. I went to her book launch. She had a virtual book launch a couple of weeks ago, and I got my signed copy yesterday. So
how fun! And she did the book launch online.
Yeah, she did it online. It was really cool. She had a presentation. She read some excerpts from her book. She told some stories. She was. A few years ago, she went to New Orleans and she did all kinds of tours and learned about the history and the culture and the history of the culture there. And that's what spawned like the theme of this book. So it's a romance and it's a suspense because it's about like like a curse from the past that is brought back to these two lovers. And then they have to, and I think it comes back to them in their dreams. Like, I haven't read it yet, but like I said, I've heard some things, and I know that I know that it's about, that it has like kind of voodoo and old voodoo and like an old curse. And I believe, the curse and the information comes to the tormented lovers in their dreams. So, which to me is like, that sounds so interesting that's how the story is being told. And I guess this curse has touched them, and then they have to figure out how to survive it, maybe.
That's fantastic. And know her.
That's where the suspense comes in, that I think they have to figure out how to maybe save their lives. I don't know. I read, like I was just reading a little bit more on the what she has on Amazon for the story of the book to be able to explain it a little bit better. So I just didn't say
you got this cool book.
I got this book, but I do like she had been writing it for a while, and I knew about her trip and how how it
influenced it.
It influenced her big time. Like she came back and she saw this. She could start to see the story when she was experiencing these like when she was touring and visiting things and learning about things. And then years later, this is it. Like
this is the product of it. Yeah, that's exciting. So what's it? It's called Love Tormented, and who's it by? Love Tormented,
and my friend, her name is Lana J. Pickering. So she has a website, lanajpickering.ca, and
I will link to the book in the show notes as well, so people will know where to find it.
Mm-hmm. It's great. That's exciting. Yes.
Yeah.
That's Pixie Dust.
That's awesome.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Thanks. I didn't even ask you before we started recording.
I know.
That's a good one.
I know, that was a surprise. So
that was a shocking Pixie Dust this week.
How about you? What's your Pixie Dust?
Well, my Pixie Dust, you saw probably on my Instagram story that, so I don't know why I have this abnormal fear of car washes, and I thought it was abnormal. So I don't go to car washes. I used to get my car washed, like hand washed, like people would do it, which meant my car was probably dirty all of the time. But it was so dirty. And I had a friend from work, videotape what it was like to go through the car wash to give me instructions, like step-by-step instructions. So, because I'm always so nervous about this little doohickey thing. You got to drive in, you got to get your wheel in the doohickey, and then you put your car in neutral, and then it pulls your car along. Well, the part of the video didn't show me that. So when I got there, like my heart's beating, I drive in, I put it in neutral, my car doesn't go anywhere. Then I'm backing up. Then I'm driving up. It wasn't working. But he didn't tell me I had to actually drive up to the machine part first to pay. Anyway, so I was backing up. This person behind me must have thought, what is wrong with this woman? But by this point, I'm committed. I got to go in. I can't, there's nowhere for me to go. Anyway,
oh man, that's the best.
I finally figured it out, and I got my car washed. But I posted it on Instagram. So the Pixie Dust actually for me was, I posted it on Instagram and said, like, is it just me? But these things freak me out. Do you know how many people replied to me saying, same thing. I never go there. I never get my car washed there. I always wash it by hand. It freaks me out, gives me anxiety. I felt vindicated. I felt like, oh, it's not just me. And then I'm telling my sister, and I'm like, so Becky, I'm going to go get my car washed. And she's like, oh, I never go to those things. They freak me out. And I'm thinking, I wonder if my dad did this to us. Like, is this one of those things that he always told us, kind of like, jump-starting your car? You know, those things that you used to charge your battery with? My dad
boosters
had
or whatever.
The boosters.
Are they called boosters?
Yeah, booster cables. That was it.
Booster cables.
I mean, I don't think you use them anymore, but I remember as a teenager, whenever the car died, and he would hand me them, and he would say, don't let those things touch. And I would stand like a scarecrow with my arms all the way out, because if I let those two things touch, I was going to fry and die. Like, that was it. He had this crazy fear in me. So I'm starting to wonder if that's where my fear of car washes came from.
Might be.
It might be. So
I just had this image of, the Christmas National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, like the cover art for it, where Clark is like electrocuted with the Christmas lights. That's what crossed my mind when you said you were afraid to touch them and you stood like a scarecrow.
That's what he would say. He would like hand them to me and then go, "Don't let them touch," and I would be like, "Ah," and yeah. So anyway, so I'm assuming that's where my fear
I think it might have come from your parents, because I think like kids generally don't kids like those car washes? Aren't they fun? Well, like to kids, like you make fun, like you make it into like an adventure.
I don't know. Somebody replied and said, "You don't go to the right car wash because mine comes with different rainbow color suds." But yeah, so anyway, my car is clean.
Will you do it again?
I might. Now I know how it works. And I know I can do it. I will, but I will never do it when there's a big line and there's like 5 people waiting to get it. I would never do that because that would just give me too much anxiety if I got stuck. So that's my pixie dust. Very exciting. My car is clean.
You're not alone.
Yeah, finding out I'm not alone. But we're having so much fun over on Instagram. For people listening, make sure you're following Pixie Dust Fan and Muppet Crazy on Instagram. You can find us there.
Just Pixie Dust Fan.
Come on. We're going to start trying. We did talk about we got to do some more live streams and things like that on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group that we sometimes do some live streams in there too. It's really just, we got to get organized and scheduled for this stuff, but sometimes it's spontaneous, and yeah, it's always fun. So find us on all the social channels, and yeah, if anybody wants to support us, the best way you can do it, share the podcast with somebody.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. What's that? And if they tell 2 people, remember that commercial?
And they tell 2 people.
And so on, and so on.
And so on.
That's the best way that you can support us. Well, again, Carrie, thank you so much for chatting with me this week.
It was a fun one.
It was a good one. And until next time, remember, you are never too old to be young. Chase your dreams and design your own happily ever after.